I recently retired from teaching at the age of 63 and relocated to a house on the outskirts of town. I was looking for a slower, more peaceful way of life. My husband passed away 5 years ago, and since then, I've found a lot of comfort in a predictable routine of gardening, reading, and occasional outings. With just a few close friends, the house had grown quiet. I missed having people around, but I had come to terms with my situation. The simplicity suited me, but my world took an unexpected turn when my stepson Alex called one day. Alex was 22, fresh out of college, and was trying to get his career off the ground. He was trying to get a foothold in the graphic design scene in the city, but it was tough to find steady work. As a result, he was also having trouble keeping up with his rent. It had been a while since I'd heard from Alex. He hadn't kept in touch after his father passed away. We weren't close, but we got along fine. There was always a sense of formality between us. When he called, he sounded a bit unsure of how to start, as if he wasn't sure how to approach the topic he wanted to discuss. "Hey Mara," he said. "I know it's been a while, but I need to ask for a favor." From the way he said it, I could tell he was in a tricky situation. I had a feeling what he was going to ask, so I didn't hesitate. "Alex, you can stay with me as long as you need until you find a stable job and a place of your own." I said it without hesitation, but I was a bit nervous. What would it be like to have someone young, especially a man, living under my roof again? I hadn't had anyone sharing my space for years, and the thought of it made me a little anxious. I got everything ready for his arrival. The morning Alex was due to move in, I made sure everything in the guest room was in order. I made sure the pillows were fluffed, the shelves were dusted, and the bathroom had fresh towels. As the hours passed, I started to feel more and more uneasy. This wasn't just about having a house guest, it was about disrupting my routine. The routine that had kept me on track for years. When Alex finally arrived in his old car, I was waiting for him on the porch. It had been a while since I'd seen him, and as he got out of the car, I was surprised. He wasn't the awkward teenager I remembered. He had grown into a tall, broad-shouldered young man. He was a young man with a newfound confidence that was evident in his demeanor. "Hey Mara," he said with a smile that felt both familiar and strange. He gave me a quick hug. His scent was woodsy and fresh, which took me by surprise. "Welcome," I replied, feeling a bit out of place. "I hope the drive wasn't too bad," I said. "Not at all," he replied, putting it out of mind. "Thanks for letting me stay," he said. The first few days were pretty quiet and uneventful. Alex spent most of his time in his room or looking for work. I tried to give him space, not wanting to be overbearing, but slowly the house began to feel different. There was a new energy in the house, and I noticed little things like Alex's smile, which seemed more genuine, or how he lingered in the kitchen, chatting with me about his day. One evening, something unexpected happened. It was late, and I had gone to bed early as usual. When I got up to go to bed, I heard the faintest creak from my bedroom door. I was still groggy when I turned over to see Alex standing in the doorway. "Alex," I mumbled, my voice still thick with sleep. "Everything okay?" he said, stepping further into the room. His tall figure was outlined against the soft light from the hallway. There was something different about the way he was standing. It looked a bit vulnerable, which I hadn't seen before. "I can't sleep," he said quietly, moving closer to the bed. I sat up, rubbing my eyes and trying to shake off the grogginess. "Is there something I should know?" he asked, pausing for a moment before continuing. He sat down on the edge of the bed, and I could feel the mattress sink under his weight. The space between us filled with an odd tension. "I'm not sure," he said, sighing. "I suppose I'm just feeling a little adrift." There was a raw quality to his voice that touched my heart, despite his outward confidence. Alex was still quite young and still learning to think things through. I put my hand on his arm to show him I was there for him. "You'll be okay," I said. "We all have rough patches, but they always pass." Our eyes met, and it felt like the air between us got thicker. I'm not sure how else to put it, but something had changed. I should have pulled away or said something to break the tension, but I let my hand linger. He lingered his hand on my arm for a few seconds longer than necessary. "Thanks, Mara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, not knowing what to say. He got up slowly, looking at me for just a moment longer before turning and walking back to his room as the door clicked shut behind him. I got back into bed, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what to make of the moment we just had. Was I reading too much into it, or had something really changed between us? The next morning, everything seemed back to normal. Alex was his usual self at breakfast, chatting with me about his job search and weekend plans. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Every time we passed in the hallway, he'd give my hand a little brush or look at me for a second. These moments were brief, but they were enough to make me wonder what was going on. As time passed, the tension between us continued to grow. One evening, a few weeks after Alex had moved in, we found ourselves sitting together on the couch watching TV as the show played in the background. We discussed everything. We discussed his job search and the places he'd been applying. We discussed the challenges of entering his industry. It was all pretty natural, but there was an unspoken tension in the air. At some point during the night, Alex's hand brushed against mine. Neither of us took our hands away. I found myself leaning into him, feeling his warmth against mine. On my side, it was a quiet, intimate moment. It felt like the right thing to do, but also like the wrong thing to do. We sat there for what felt like an eternity, the tension between us palpable. I knew we'd crossed a line that was hard to undo. But there was a part of me that was so used to feeling lonely and grieving that I didn't want to turn back. I deserved to feel something again. Even though it was a bit unconventional and messy, Alex and I continued to figure out this new dynamic as time went on. We never talked about it directly, but it was there in the way we interacted with each other and the way our conversations became more personal and intimate. Then came the night when everything changed. Alex had just gotten back from a job interview. I asked him a few questions, and he seemed pretty pleased with himself. He said it went well and that they seemed interested. He said he'll know by the end of the week. I told him I was really happy for him. That night, we toasted to the news. We got takeout and opened a bottle of wine and spent the evening talking about his future and how excited he was for what was to come. We had a great conversation. As the night went on, the wine helped us to relax and be more open. The conversation moved on to us and whatever was going on between us. I don't know what this is, Alex said, his eyes meeting mine across the table. I can't ignore it. His heart was racing as I looked away, unsure of how to respond. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind. It's a bit of a complicated situation. After a moment, I finally spoke up and said, He said quietly, I know I care about you more than I should, and I want to be honest about that. His words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I was at a loss for words. This wasn't part of the plan, but here we are. I care about you, I said quietly. We can't rush this. We need to proceed with caution. He nodded, and I could see relief wash over his face. I could see relief on his face. We can take it slow, he said. We'll figure it out together over the next few weeks. Alex and I learned to find a way to work together despite the challenges. We learned to tread carefully to respect the boundaries we had set, while also embracing the connection we had found. It wasn't easy, but somehow we managed to make it work. Thanks for watching and have a great day.